everyone. I'm your host, Ashley Krez, and thanks for joining us on It's All Millennial. Here we discuss important issues relating to a large segment of our population, better known as Generation Y. Today's show, we're talking about Millennials, Gen Y leading 2014, and here with us to share their thoughts are Paul Prochilo, the Director of Corporate Strategy with Prochilo Brothers, and Fataneh Naghavi, a psychotherapist with Real Life Counselling. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. So, leadership, personal leadership, right? Such an interesting topic. I'm looking forward to today's discussion. My first taste of, real learning about personal leadership was many years ago. My dad actually facilitated me through a program, learning more about my own personal leadership, about my own strengths and goals, and what success means. So, let's talk more about this very intriguing topic. Some question, or my first question is, I'm curious, do men and women lead differently? What do you think?
Well, actually, I would say that definitely men and women may lead differently, but truly I feel that there are different characteristics and attributes that each individual may have, and some attributes of successful leadership women may have more prominently than men. But to define leadership as a whole, I believe that there are 5 core factors that are involved, and those those spread across all sexes, cultures, and environment in entirety. Strong character, strong interpersonal dynamics, relationship building, intuition, field expertise, and really overall a breadth of experience is extremely important in any successful leadership. So basically that can be shared between men and women equally at any point.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So leadership for women, any thoughts from you, Fataneh, on these differences, or are there?
I believe there is no significant difference between women and men's leadership. However, men's brain and women's brain is different. For example, men's brain circulate more testosterone hormone. Testosterone hormone, it's aggression and competition chemical, and women brains circulate more oxytocin. It's a bonding hormone. As a result, we can see some difference between their performance.
But I'm sure only a slight difference, right? Yeah.
And just to continue on that point, those are some of those different attributes, whereas testosterone in some men may, relinquish or inhibit their ability to have empathy in a certain situation, which would require a clear mind to be able to really effectively lead, and then inherently where some women may carry some more attributes of emotional intelligence in order to help in the situation. Those are, predisposed, predispositions, if you will, but like everything else in life, if you're really willing to work at it, it can all be overcome without issue. But I think that scientific perspective is something that we can't lose sight of either. Most definitely.
Oh, fascinating. So, why we're talking about personal leadership and leadership skills. So why do you think this is important that we practice more of it? And as you alluded to, Paul, really working on enhancing these qualities.
Absolutely. My opinion of it is that leadership is the ability to influence an individual or a group to achieve to a greater state to a greater position than their current state, right? And that in itself means, hey, you know what, I'm helping. You could have attitude of servitude, helping develop people to become better. But that is extremely important, not only in our business world, but in society as a whole. So my opinion of it is, like, what would the world be like if we had true leaders in different levels of government, perhaps in the educational institutions, perhaps in sports recreational associations, perhaps even in homes of faith, church, wherever it may be. what would the world be like if we truly were dedicated to being able or ensuring that we were able to lead and influence the greater good to a better state than its current state? I mean, how much further ahead would we be?
Sure.
And you can see what kind of a huge impact this has on society, not just in our day-to-day relationship with our friends, or in the business. It's all not about dollars and cents. It's really about developing community. And I think, and society, and I think that's something with all of what we see on the radio today, or hear on the radio, see on TV.
Yeah.
I think that's a definite lack of leadership, and most importantly, in society as a whole, which is most troubling as well. So it's an issue that should be addressed. And I mean, me personally, I get passionate and excited about how amazing the world could really be if more leadership was being practiced on a daily basis.
So harnessing more of your own strengths, recognizing your strengths, and learning within yourself how you can practice, practice influencing, those close to you, influencing your community as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Very powerful, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, well, hey, that's, in order to add value, you need to add value to yourself first before you can give back to the rest. So if you work on developing yourself, I think, and then there's the whole law of attraction that comes into play, where if you are focusing your energies and efforts in the right place, start with yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, leadership is fantastic, but you need a model. And that model's in the mirror.
Yes.
Lead yourself first.
Absolutely.
Lead yourself. You can do a better job of leading others.
Yeah.
And then it's not all just for that personal benefit. It's what can we give back to society that leaves a legacy.
Well, you both, have given some great insights into personal leadership. Keep watching. When we come back after the break, we'll talk more about organizational leadership and why it's just so important. Stay tuned. show. Before the break, we were talking about personal leadership, and now we're here to discuss organizational leadership and why it's so important. Paul, so, to the two of you, really, there was a research study done by Deloitte that, took a look globally at the characteristics that millennials want, really strive for as leadership skills and as employees in organizations. And some of the results were that millennials want leadership and they want it their way. Millennials know that they're not ready for leadership but want it anyway. Millennials value open, transparent, inclusive leadership, and that millennials really thrive on innovation and change, right? So with that, working with millennials in your organization, you must see some of these characteristics.
Absolutely, and I think you really summarize very well what some of the psychoanalytics of what a Gen Y is. And in our business, we have a very strong mentorship development program for apprentices, and that's how we come into such frequent contact with Gen Ys as they're coming right through high school and they're getting to their Red Seal certifications. So in our preparation, through our recruitment and selection strategies, we were determining we need to get a better understanding. And we've summed it up as the 3 R's. And Generation Y is the most recorded, revered, and rewarded generation that exists to date.
Love
and
it.
Many of these are, through the their very proficient use of social media. And so, their focus and their different skill sets have been completely different from what we've seen in other generations. Revered, well, how can I say, the whole concept helicopter mom was developed through
Yes.
Gen Ys.
Yeah.
So we had to have a firm understanding of that. And rewarded is, much to what some of your summary was there. I wouldn't suggest there's an instant gratification demand from them, but yes, they do want the gratification. And it may not have to be instant, but it better not take too long either. So we incorporated all this in our training and development. And again, when we speak to leadership and leading Gen Ys, it was a totally different ballgame from the Gen X's, as myself, or the Boomers.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, again, the influence, and in this case, it is a group, and they're a very vast group, they're growing within our business, we had to begin to understand what were the attributes, or what attributes did we need to have to help better influence them to succeed. And basically 360-degree appraisals, they want feedback. They want to take on challenges too, sometimes too far. But we as leaders need to ensure that we're supporting them with the best mechanisms for their success.
Absolutely. Well, good points. And, I'm sort of curious as well, Fataneh, in regards to leadership styles, right? There must be, different, we're such unique individuals that you must, also find different leadership styles. Maybe you can speak to those a little bit.
Yeah, basically there are some leadership styles such as people-orientated, task-orientated, relation-orientated, servant leadership.
Okay.
And I believe the best one is servant leadership, because servant leaders believe that they should share their power between their team members.
So even from, sort of the psychotherapy perspective, right, with servant leadership being one of the most admirable ones, and I think that sort of complements what you were saying, right, with
Definitely, I agree
the
100%.
evolution.
Yeah, the leadership style with Gen Y is an attitude of servitude will not do you wrong.
Yeah.
That is for certain. But that's my opinion on life in general. But definitely Gen Ys take to it. Or have a better understanding to you. Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
it feels very fulfilling, right? Knowing that, okay, within our organization that, we're all working together, and it's not necessarily a top-down model as it may have been, right?
Most certainly.
Perfect. So, as we're talking about personal leadership, organizational leadership, what are some ways to really enhance, your own style, or enhance, your own skills within an organization to get to that next level or to discover more?
I mean, I would suggest, just as everything else in life, unless we live in a blanketed world where everything just happened because we thought hard enough about it, which we know doesn't happen, everything needs to be intentional. If we make decisions in our own personal lives, most of the time we want to buy a house, that's intentional. We're getting, you know, all the credits approved and everything, the whole nines. Yeah. If we're moving into a new business venture, it's intentional. We're setting strategy. We're setting goals. We're setting, you know, time and planning. That's the exact same thing with leadership. Yeah. Leadership must be intentional or it will not grow. And, you know, I know Fatima would be able to speak to more of it through EQ, but, you know, at some point you need to aware, you know, they say admittance is the first step, right, to your redemption. You really have to have the recognition that you need to change. And following that, you need to put the right strategies in place. Yeah, yeah. So looking in the mirror a little bit, right? Are there any ways that, and we will probably speak to this in the next segment, you know, about emotional intelligence, but you know, in your counseling practice, are there any ways that you know, work with individuals to help them see themselves a little more clearly?
Yeah. First of all, give them freedom, because this generation, they are more interested to this kind of practice. And the other thing is that be green, because this generation have grown up with Earth Day, global warming, and they have more interested to have less impact on environment. And offering ongoing training, it means that give them life skill training and time management, this kind of things.
Well, very good. So it's a lot about empowering, about giving back, about teaching, about, you know, as we said, look in the mirror and recognizing my own strengths, working towards that, complementing, you know, the organization, complementing the goals, right? Absolutely. Perfect. Well, stay tuned. When we come back after the break, we'll talk more about emotional intelligence and why it's so important. Keep watching. back to the show. We're here today talking about millennials leading 2014 and beyond. We've talked about personal leadership, organizational leadership, and now we're here to talk about emotional intelligence and what it's all about. Ladies and gents, emotional intelligence, eh? So, Fataneh, maybe you can speak to us a little bit about what is emotional intelligence?
Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, first of all, our emotion and understand our
Yeah, for sure. It's about recognizing what your own emotions, recognizing and tuning into your own feelings, your own behaviors, but also relating to the emotions of other people as well, and recognizing some of those abilities, right? Perfect. So, from that, I'm curious. We talked about in the first segment, the gender differences of leadership. Are there gender differences in emotional intelligence or EQ?
Absolutely, there are some differences between men and women emotional intelligence. For instance, men have more emotional intelligence, have a strong emotional intelligence and managing distressing emotion, and women good at interpersonal emotion and emotional empathy.
Okay.
It means that they are more willing to communicate through the handling and managing their emotion.
So from research, you're saying then that men have more abilities to manage their stress.
Exactly.
Versus women, have more of the interpersonal strengths,
right.
Generally speaking. Very interesting. So, how do we even assess our EQ? How do we figure that out? Yeah, if you can speak to that.
There are some questions that we can ask and understand what is our situation in emotional intelligence. First of all, we should ask, are you aware of your emotion and are you aware of your feeling? And then we can ask, what is your weakness and what is your strength? And the other question we can ask, during a team member, are you prefer working at the team or no, you prefer working alone, getting alone? And sometimes when you get upset, how long does it take to recover this kind of feel?
Fascinating. So, as you were saying, how do we relate to ourselves, to other people, whether we have preferences of being more introverted or extroverted? There must be assessments, I'm sure, that people can take to help them walk through that, right? So, if I take an assessment or I talk to an individual to help me understand more of my EQ, why does this matter? If somebody has a higher EQ, what does this mean?
That's right. The good news is that emotional intelligence is teachable, learnable, and developable skills. It means that those people had more opportunity to improve this kind of skills.
Perfect. So, Paul, as we're talking about emotional intelligence, maybe you can share a little bit about, having a stronger EQ. How does that help us in our day-to-day?
Yeah, absolutely. And in some of my training in my own personal leadership development, actually EQ has been a very big proponent. And it's actually statistically proven, I don't have to tell Fataneh for sure, but statistically it's been proven that higher success rates, there's a higher success rate for success or achievable rate of success in individuals who have a higher EQ than an IQ. And I mean, when you look at it, as Fataneh had already mentioned about the different characteristics, there's self-management, self-motivation, empathy, interpersonal dynamics. These are all very, very strong attributes for someone to have, not only obviously in your personal life, you're going to probably have a much more flourishing personal, interpersonal life, but in business as well and in communicating. And then we lend EQ into leadership development and understanding that on our path of influencing others to greatness, not everyone will catch the same speed as everyone else. Sure. So that's where some of that empathy needs to come into play. When things go wrong, leaders need to ensure they keep a clear mind so that we don't poison it with maljudgment. And that's where self-awareness comes into play, as Fataneh had mentioned, that you have to be aware of where you're at. Self-motivation is a given. A leader needs to be motivated. You can't wait for someone to come and pick you up and get you moving. You need to be going.
That's actually, that's an interesting point about motivation, right? Where,
absolutely.
You know, I think motivation plays a big piece into achieving our goals and to moving to that next level. You know, the theme Millennial Gen Y, right? And not everything is handed over, and we do work hard towards what we want. So, you know, how do we motivate individuals?
Well, I mean, when you're motivating individuals, it's specifically Gen Ys. I mean, but this can be cookie cut across the board. You really got to have to connect what your goal is. And we'll speak specifically if it could be business, but again, could be in a church community or a community of faith. It could be in the community overall. We have to really tie in what's in it for me, what's in it for that separate individual. Because any change isn't really going to be easy. Some are easy, some are more difficult. But when we're embracing this change and moving through this state of influence, we really need to have a strong enough why for someone to hang on.
Yep, I love your what's in it for me. I think that's been my motivator throughout my whole life. Okay, you know, why am I doing this? What are the benefits of achieving, you know, all this hard work?
Absolutely, and you know, I mean, Steve Jobs said it best. He was like, you know, you have to love what you're doing, because if you're a leader of a business or in a community, things are not always going to go right, and you'd be insane to stick around if you didn't love it. But we see into that insanity because we love it so much.
Oh, for sure.
And we've got to correlate that back to the individual or the group that we're talking to, of where there benefits in it for them, so that they have something to hold on to when the times get tough.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for sharing your thoughts today as well, Fataneh.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for watching the show today. For more information on our guests and our show and behind the scenes, please check out itsallmillennial.tv.